What's up, my people? It's your man, Mellow Man. Hope all is well. Listen, take a walk with me real quick. I want to explain something to you. Now, as you all may know or may not know, it takes 200 million sperm to make it to an egg. All right? So when you're born or before you're born, it takes 200 million sperm to get to an egg. So if you happen to be here today, then you are something special because out of 200 million, you made it to that egg first. I say that to say this. We're going to talk about the inner city community kids, right? Or everyone who has grown up in the inner city communities, people of color, people that look like me. For the majority, that's what it is, right? So when you're conceived, right? You're conceived, you hit that egg and your mother's conceived. At this point in time, she becomes pregnant, all right? And you're in the belly of this woman. Whoever you may be, you're in the belly of this woman. Now, at this time, you have no idea whose belly you're in. You have no idea who's going to carry you. Understand what I'm saying? So if this happens to be a woman who's not taking care of her body, who's selfish and she wants to smoke and she wants to drink or she wants to do drugs or whatever the reasons are that has her doing this, now you're in the belly of this woman. So God knows how long this is going on while you're in the belly, outside of the drinking and the drugs and the smoking, just the overall emotional problems and the stress that this woman is going through. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of these women in the inner city communities go through this. Not most of them, not all of them, but I'm just talking about the ones that's doing this to their children are going through these type of problems, right? Those are the ones I'm talking about. And you're in the belly of your mother. And what you got to think about is when you are born, how will what she's done while you were in her belly affect you? All right? We're talking about the cards you were dealt, right? We're talking about the cards you're dealt. So as you're coming out and depending on the situation you're coming into, maybe you're coming into a situation where she's a single parent. Maybe you're coming into a situation where the father is non-existent or he's locked up or he's dead or he's just absent, period. You're talking about the cards you were dealt. At this point in time, you start life from there. Now, whether it's a 3 or a 5 or a 6 or 7, wherever it might be, you're starting life from that point. Have any of you ever played spades, right? And you get your spade hand and you look at it. Now, whatever you're dealt, the cards you're dealt, whatever you're dealt at that point in time is what you have to play with. Now, you got to start from that point to survive in this big old crazy world. You're starting from that point. I'm trying to give you a perspective of what a lot of us go through in the land of our oppression. A lot of in these inner city communities, but a lot of our boys and girls go through. And you're talking about we don't all start at an equal playing ground. We don't all start there. Now, whatever your hand you were dealt in life is where you start. So it's not, like I said, this proves that it's not equal. Because you have no say-so in who you're born into. You have no say-so. You're just born, and then whatever cards you were dealt with, you got to start life from that very point on. Now, if it's a 3, you got to find out, what am I going to do with this hand of 3, of the 3 rating to survive out in this world? You have competition all over the world, and a lot of them started at 8, 9, and 10. How am I going to get ahead in this world with this kind of competition? So I'm looking at my cards, right? And I started at a rate of 3. Let's say I started at a rate of 3. I'm looking at my cards. I'm like, wow. All right. This card, my father's not here. My mother's struggling. We're poor. That's another card. Do I even have a full deck of cards here? So whatever my result is, I got to come into this world with, at this point, at this rating, with dealt these kind of cards, and I got to try to survive. What would you do if it was you and you was at a 3? You're born in an inner city community. Your father's not there. Your father's either on drugs, locked up, dead, or just not there, period. Your mom is struggling and she's trying to do the best she can do, or she's just doing radical things herself and not on point herself. And you're a kid. Tell me, what is the chances that you will survive in that environment under that situation? What are the chances of you surviving in that predicament if you were that kid? What are the expectations on that kid? What do you expect that kid to do? How successful do you expect that kid to be? What are your expectations on that individual? If it were you, what would you do? And you're coming up as this kid, and you're going throughout life, and you may have some mental issues now. If your mom was on drugs or drinking alcohol or smoking or whatever the case may be, you may be a little delayed or not have it all together. Now, all right? And then now you're in a predicament where, your father's not there. Or if your father was there, if he's being abusive to your mother, you're coming up in a dysfunctional family. How do you expect that kid to grow up? That man, that young man or that young woman, how do you expect them to grow up, and what do you expect them to become? What are their chances? Let's talk about the overall. We're not talking about the slim chances that people slide through. We're talking about the majority of kids in this predicament. How they grow up, what kind of man they become, who they're in competition with. Where does that leave them? You got to think about this. And over all of that, you got to think about, how did this come to be? Because you can look at the mother and you can look at the father, but let's look at their mother and that father, and their mother and their father. This trends down. This comes down the line. I always said that the kid is not really responsible until they become an adult and smart enough to make their own decisions. But as a kid growing up, and by the time you get smart enough to make your own decisions, it might be too late. Or you might not even know how to do that. You were never taught that. You don't have the capability of making rational decisions and smart decisions. You're just a product of your environment, and you're out here just trying to survive the best way you know how. And some of you, the best way you know how may be to resort to the streets. You can't get a job. You don't know how to get a job. You can't read properly. You can't think properly. All you know is that what I see around me is the way to make money is to sell drugs, to rob, to steal, to kill. What if it was you? Would you understand that individual a little better? If you understood their stories, not making excuses for them, but you got to understand the cards a person is dealt. Was that you? Did you have a better life than that? Were you lucky enough to have a better life than that? Even if you came out and your rating was a 6 or a 5 or 7, you're in a way better position than that person. I want you to realize that when you go out here every day and you're making judgments on people, and you're trying to understand why people do what they do, what are you doing about that? What are you doing to help the person, to help the cause, to help the situation? What are you doing about it? Are you just complaining? Are you just shaking your head at people? Or frowning upon people? What are you doing? You got to ask yourself that. How did this happen? You got to ask, because this happened the way this started was, it went some hundreds of years back. How did we get in this predicament? You know what happened? We were fooled into the fight of our lives every day. How do we get out of this? How did we get here? Get this book. It explains everything. It's Mellow Main. I wish peace and love to you all, and God bless.